Equals, it's Kim, and this is Wednesday. I actually didn't anticipate recording another video this week. I recorded 2 on Sunday. You saw the earlier one yesterday. But something has come up and I want to talk about it. I'm going to try to get this up tomorrow. This week in the Ohio State House, the Senate is hearing a bill that's already been passed by the Ohio House called it's HB36, named by its proponents, not its opponents, but its proponents, the Pastor Protection Act. And while there's a lot of around that bill, bills aren't always written well, etc. Let me say the first thing. The proponents of this bill and people of faith who believe in a certain type of holiness that does not really allow for LGBT people to engage fully in society feel threatened with lawsuits about whether they are, in this case, marrying same-sex couples. Now, let's talk about a few things first. First off, a pastor's or religious leader's ability to decide who they will and will not marry is time-honored, is protected both in the Ohio Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. However, Ohio pastors still seem to be threatened. And I'm interested in that while they have some support from the Catholic Conference, which shouldn't surprise anyone, most of the other pastors I see who are supporting this are pastors from churches and belief systems that are not backed up by a major denomination. So I don't really see many Presbyterians or Methodists or Episcopalians or Unitarians as part of this group of pastors who support this bill. I see mostly, those pastors who've started their own churches, and they're the ones that seem to be worried. Okay, I'll grant them that if they were sued, they don't have the legal protection and the legal assistance that somebody from one of the major denominations would have, and so they might feel that they need extra protection somehow to even avoid the thought of a lawsuit so that they wouldn't have to hire a lawyer. I'll give that to them. It might be a concern of theirs. Now, the truth of the matter is, even if this HB36 passed and was signed by the governor, it wouldn't do that. It provides no further protection against a lawsuit than the existing protections in the Constitution, in both the Ohio and the U.S. Constitution. That may provide a little backup support to allow somebody to win in court, but it certainly doesn't stop someone from being sued in the first place and having to go into a courtroom and defend themselves. And I'm sure they'd win. They just want to avoid having to go into that courtroom in the first place, and this bill won't fix that. Now, has anybody in Ohio ever had this problem? Not yet, and I don't think it'll happen. It could, theoretically. But right now it really looks like a solution looking for a problem. What else does this bill do? Because we all know that bills generally don't get written in the best way possible. The other things that this bill does is to talk about religious societies and protect religious societies in a way that it hasn't been before and doesn't define. Well, they're relying on existing definitions of religious society in the code, and those definitions aren't very good. They should be improved, and such that we don't want to have somebody who isn't a religious business, so they're not run by a religious entity like a church or a mosque or a synagogue, declaring themselves a religious society like the Knights of Columbus or something. And and then saying that because we're a religious society, we're going to deny certain people access to our facilities, store, whatever, which would otherwise be open to the public. And therein we have a really big problem. And this, I believe, is where this clash between the religious right and LGBT advocates is being played out the most right now. We saw this in Masterpiece. We've seen it in a number of places. And here's the gist of this issue. The United States has long held, at least since the 1960s and 1970s, that if you are a place of public commerce, so money is being exchanged, and you claim to be open to the public, that you are, so that makes you a public accommodation. And public accommodations are restricted from discriminating based on certain characteristics. And in Ohio, that includes race and religion and national origin and age and sex, but it does not include sexual orientation and gender identity. That said, there's local municipalities, Cuyahoga County, the city of Cleveland, the city of Columbus, the city of Cincinnati, Athens, Toledo, Dayton, and many more. Akron, sorry to leave you out, Youngstown, have passed local ordinances that ban discrimination in public accommodation. So, first of all, is somebody who is simply religious, but not run by a religious entity, registered with the IRS, etc., like a church or a synagogue or a mosque, and owns a business, is their business allowed to discriminate? And historically, we would say no. If you're open to the public, you need to be open to the public equally and treat the public equally. So if you have a ban, we often see these things in restaurant windows: no shirt, no shoes, no service. That's fine, because it's equally applied to everyone. And it does need to be equally applied if somebody were to figure out and be able to prove that you let some people in without their shoes and shirts, but other people were not allowed in without their shoes and shirts, they would have a case. Same thing with, we often see LGBT couples kicked out of places for displays of affection, whereas opposite-sex couples are allowed maybe to snuggle or kiss or hold hands in a restaurant booth or whatever, but often LGBT couples are not. That is discrimination because you're not treating everybody equally. So that's the person who is not a religious organization. Then and that's the masterpiece cake question. All right, then we come back to, say your local church runs a store out of their basement, and the store claims to be open to the public. Can they decide who they're going to serve and who they are not going to serve? So this is that, now they've moved into public accommodation where they claim to be open to the public, or they say they are open to the public, or even if they don't say it, but they are. If they're a place of public accommodation, they should be open to everyone, regardless of whether everyone matches their definition of how people should be. Now, if that space, so let's say a wedding venue, is open to their membership only, people who are members of their church or attend their church regularly, then they're not a place of public accommodation, and they are totally okay with discriminating. It's that we're open to the public piece. And so that's in question with this bill. And not just for LGBT couples. The way that it's written, it would be anyone. So it takes away rights that currently exist for people of color, people of other religions, potentially for people of a certain age. Could be any of those things. So right now, folks based on those characteristics would be protected from this kind of discrimination. But this HB36 would open them up to a discrimination that was against the law before this bill. All right, so the bill gets proponent testimony today in the State House. That means the people who are for it passing get to come before this committee that it's in and talk about why this bill should pass. I think, I think there is a space here for the religious right and LGBT advocates to potentially work together. We certainly don't have a problem with restating a pastor's ability to choose who they will and will not marry. Doesn't affect us, doesn't change anything. If they just want to do it twice or 3 times, as the case may be, great. Don't have a problem with that. Right? It's this issue of when you're open to the public, can you pick and choose which members of the public you will serve and which members of the public you will not serve? And again, things like no shirts, no shoes, no service are okay because they apply to everyone. Okay? All right, there are a lot of nuances to all of this, but I did want to get this up because tomorrow when I have it up, Thursday will be the day that opponents of when opponents of HB36 get their chance to stand up before the Senate committee and tell senators why they think they should not pass this bill. Anyway, if you're interested in knowing more, contact Equality Ohio, equalityohio.org. Info@equalityohio.org will get you email and you can learn more. Watch the news. I'll bet there'll be a story. All right, everyone. Have a good weekend, Equals. Bye.